I have no idea how this Reacher character survived until the end of Season 3, but I'm glad they did. Despite all the genre cliches pointing to it, somehow Roberto Montesino's agent Villanueva somehow survived Reacher's third season. The latest season of Reacher introduced a whole new cast of characters, including a D-team looking to rescue a missing informant. While Agent Duffy Sonia Cassidy was essentially the co-lead of the new series, her partner Guillermo Villanueva played a significant role throughout. A veteran agent on the verge of retirement and struggling to maintain a healthy diet, the odds of Guillermo making it to the end looked grim from the outset. In just about every 1980s or 1990s action movie, an older cop or agent mere days away from retirement is all but guaranteed to die before the credits roll. Reacher's writers kept piling on the cliches too. Villanueva had a worried wife at home, and he constantly advises Duffy to give up on the case before things get too dangerous. Not only does Agent Villanueva make it to the very end, he even gets to unleash his inner John McClane when he dons a bloody vest and storms Beck's Anthony Michael Hall mansion. Villanueva acted as the voice of reason throughout Season 3, and it helped that Roberto Montesinos was incredibly likable in the role. Laying all the ingredients on the table, it felt like Reacher's unfinished business was lining him up for a tragic fate. Again, he's about 20 minutes from retirement. His wife is worried about him, he's significantly slower and less able than Reacher and Duffy etc. He's practically running around with a giant target on his back, but I'm glad Reacher's Season 3 finale took a different approach. The entire season might have led up to the destructive Reacher versus Paulie fight, but I'd argue the bathroom fight between Villanueva and one of Quinn's goons is as effective for several reasons. One is that Villanueva feels like an actual human being, and while he holds his own during the battle, he's clearly struggling against a younger, faster opponent. A careful application of a toilet lid to the goon's head solves that problem, and he later rescues Richard Beck Johnny Berchtold from the mansion. Maybe Villanueva dying would have made Reacher's finale more potent or highlighted that not everyone gets a happy ending, but the show was right to dodge the trope. Throughout the series, Villanueva remained hopelessly loyal to his protege Duffy even when her judgment was questionable and was invaluable to the operation's success. Killing Villanueva would have been a serious bummer, especially after poor Elliot Daniel David Stewart got his head stomped in earlier in the series. There's a moment in every season of Reacher when you sit back, stare at your screen, and think, there's no way they're making it out of this alive. Not Reacher himself, no, he's a mountain of a man who chews through bad guys like a wood chipper with a grudge. But the people around him? The ones who don't bench press Buicks for breakfast? That's where the real suspense lies. And in Season 3, there's one character in particular who had me absolutely convinced they were doomed from the jump. I mean dead. Crushed. Expendable. Plot fodder. And yet, somehow, miraculously, stubbornly, maybe even irrationally, they made it to the end credits of the finale, still breathing. I'm talking, of course, about Detective Sarah Ongwain. If you're sitting there scratching your head, wondering how she dodged the inevitable bullet, you're not alone. I still don't have a solid answer. But let's break it down, because her survival might be one of the most chaotic, delightful mysteries Reacher has served up yet. Introduced with a death flag waving, you know how in war movies, there's always the guy who says, I've got a girl waiting for me back home, and suddenly he's a human landmine magnet? That was the energy Sarah Ongwain brought to her first scene. She's introduced in Episode 1 as a hard-nosed detective in a small Georgia town that's way too quiet to be safe. She's tenacious, overworked, and crucially unafraid to challenge Reacher. That last part? Big red flag. Any character who barks at Reacher, questions his methods, and doesn't immediately get steamrolled by his gravel voice charisma usually ends up in one of two places, a body bag or the hospital. Sarah? She picked the third option. She somehow survived and earned Reacher's respect. That's practically witchcraft. Every rule said she'd die. By the laws of Reacher storytelling, which are as unbending as Reacher's code of justice, Sarah was a goner. Let's take a look at the red flags. 1. She had a backstory, single mother, moved back to her hometown to take care of her aging father, fighting a corrupt system. That's basically a setup for a tragic flashback montage. 2. She worked alone, no backup, no trustworthy partner, just her and a mostly broken scanner radio. That's like hanging a "Please ambush me" sign on your car. 3. She got close to the truth too fast. In episode 3, she connects the dots on the militia group tied to the arms trafficking ring. Classic rookie mistake in the Reacher universe. At this point, I was already preparing her eulogy. Maybe she'd die saving Reacher. Maybe she'd get used as leverage. Maybe she'd go out in a heroic blaze of glory. But she was definitely toast. Right? The chaos theory of survival. Wrong. So wrong. Sarah Ongwain not only survived, she thrived. She dodged assassins in a motel shootout. She cracked an encrypted USB drive with nothing but a notepad and a stubborn glare. She held her own in a literal standoff in episode 6 and didn't even blink when a guy twice her size tried to use a fire extinguisher as a bludgeon. There was no logic to it. This wasn't plot armor, it was plot alchemy. Something about her survival just defied the narrative gravity of the show. The best part? She didn't survive because Reacher bailed her out at every turn. In fact, there were times when she saved him. In episode 5, when Reacher's plan to infiltrate the militia compound went sideways, it was Sarah who drove a stolen backhoe through a fence to cause a diversion. Not subtle, but effective. That was the moment she officially ascended to legend status. Chemistry that didn't get romantic, and thank God. The show flirted briefly with the idea of Reacher and Sarah having a romantic subplot. You could feel the potential. Mutual respect, glances that lingered too long, a quiet moment in a diner after a shootout. But to the show's credit, it didn't go there. And honestly, that might have saved her life. Reacher love interests have the lifespan of houseflies. If Sarah had crossed that line, she probably would have taken a sniper round before the credits rolled. Instead, she stayed firmly in the zone of professional partnership, and it worked brilliantly. Their dynamic became something rare in action thrillers, a genuine camaraderie between equals. He was the brawn. She was the brain. Together, they made an unstoppable and refreshingly platonic duo. Fan reaction was instant and loud. You only have to glance at the Reacher subreddit or Twitter fine X to know that fans loved Sarah Ongwain. And not just in the "she's cool" way, in the "if they kill her, we riot" kind of way. Fan art, memes, conspiracy theories about her backstory, petitions to make her a series regular. People latched onto her like she was a life raft in a sea of gunfire and gravelly one-liners. And honestly, it's easy to see why. She was competent without being invincible, tough without being cartoonish, funny without being a joke. She brought a kind of grounded humanity to a show that often trades in extremes, and the contrast made her scenes pop. So, how did she survive? I wish I had an answer. Maybe the writers knew they had lightning in a bottle and pivoted mid-season. Maybe the actress, Lin Tao Ongwain, just crushed her performance so hard they couldn't bear to write her off. Maybe it was dumb luck or clever misdirection or some pact with the TV gods. Whatever the case, Sarah made it. And in doing so, she changed the rules. She reminded us that in a world of backroom conspiracies, underground fight clubs, and silent but deadly protagonists, there's still room for someone who plays